In this video, I will explain how to find the vertical and horizontal asymptotes of rational functions. So I've written down a couple rules that we can remember of how to find the vertical and horizontal asymptotes. To find the vertical asymptote, we just set the denominator equal to 0 and solve for x. And to find the horizontal asymptote, we just compare the degree of the numerator with the degree of the denominator. So I have a few examples for us to work through here. Let's check out the first one. We have f of x equals 5x divided by x minus 7. So first, let's find the vertical asymptote of this expression. So what we can do is set the denominator equal to 0. So x minus 7 equals 0. And we just need to solve for x. Well, easy enough. We just add 7 on each side. That leaves us with x is equal to 7. So that is our, VA for vertical asymptote. X is equal to 7. Now, to find the horizontal asymptote, let's write h dot a. We compare the degree of the numerator with the degree of the denominator. Or in other words, what's the largest exponent in the numerator and what's the largest exponent in the denominator? Well, we can see that the largest exponent in the numerator is just 1. So let's write d is 1. And in the denominator, the largest exponent is also just 1. d equals 1. So let's check out our rules of thumb here. We can see that when the degree of the numerator is equal to the degree of the denominator, we just take the ratio of the leading coefficients. So in this example, the ratio of the leading coefficient of the numerator is a 5 right here. Just whatever number is in front of that 5, in front of that x, excuse me. And then in the denominator, the leading coefficient is a 1. So our horizontal asymptote would be the ratio of these two. So it would be 5 divided by 1, or just 5. So in this example, the vertical asymptote is x equals 7, and the horizontal asymptote is y equals 5. All right, let's check out the next example. We have x cubed plus 1 divided by x squared minus 4. So again, let's start with the vertical asymptote. To find the vertical asymptote, we need to set x squared minus 4 equal to 0. So if we factor this left-hand side, we can break this down into x plus 2 and x minus 2 equals 0. So what values of x that if we plugged in here would make this left-hand side equal to 0? Well, just by looking at it, we can see that x is negative 2 or x is positive 2. So these two numbers are both our vertical asymptotes. So in this case, we have two vertical asymptotes, VA. Okay, now we can find the horizontal asymptote. So I'll write HA again. And remember, to do that, we just need to compare the degree of the numerator with the degree of the denominator. Or in other words, what is the largest exponent in the numerator? So we'll say degree, or d, in the numerator is 3. Degree in the denominator is 2. That's the largest exponent. And now let's check out our rules of thumb. When the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator, there is no horizontal asymptote. So in this case, we will write none. So we had two vertical asymptotes and no horizontal asymptote. All right, let's take a look at this last example. We have x plus 4 divided by x squared plus 7x plus 12. So let's start by finding the vertical asymptote again, and we can set x squared plus 7x plus 12 equal to 0. So to factor this particular polynomial, we need to think what numbers will multiply to 12 and add to 7. So that would be x plus 4, x plus 3. Because 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 plus 3 is 7. So then we set that equal to 0, and we say what values of x would make this left-hand side equal to 0? Well, we can see that would be x is negative 4, or x is negative 3. Now, in this particular example, we have to be careful because if we factor the denominator and we get this, we have to check if either of these parentheses are equal to an expression in the numerator. So in this particular example, we can see this x plus 4 is actually equal to this x plus 4. So we actually have to ignore this one because this one will not be one of our vertical asymptotes. So in this case, the only vertical asymptote that we have is going to be x is equal to -3. All right, VA x equals -3. And now for the horizontal asymptote, remember, once again, we have to compare the degree of the numerator with the degree of the denominator. So we'll write degree of the numerator, d, is equal to, the greatest exponent that we have in the numerator is just 1. And the degree of the denominator, the greatest exponent we have is 2. So now if we check out our rules of thumb, when the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, y is just equal to 0. So this is true in this case. The degree of the numerator is 1. The degree of the denominator is 2. So we would write horizontal asymptote is simply y equals 0. Thanks for watching, guys.